Hey everyone, my name is Tom and welcome to How to Play the Blues 12-bar Blues 5.0. Now in this section we're going to be mostly focusing on how to change chords. So a G can be played in a lot of different ways, just as a C and a D in the case of the 12-bar Blues in G. And we're going to learn it in such a way that you can actually, after learning how to change a G, you can change any chord. You can change a C, D in the same way. And the reason we're doing this is because if we go on to a more advanced blues, a more advanced 12-bar blues, we're gonna have to learn how to add stuff to it. And I can easily show you, well, if you do this, you can do this and this and this and this, but you won't have any of the background with it. If you learn this, how to change a chord and how to appropriately change a chord, then you can use it in any way you like, in any 12-bar blues you like. You can even use it outside of the blues, of course. So that's why I put this video in between of the 12-bar blues, so you can actually, if you learn this, then in the next video it'll be a lot easier for you to play along and a lot easier for you to pick up. And these are just some simple ways in how to change a chord. So let's step right in. We got ourselves a G chord, G major chord, right? So we already learned how to make it a 7th, which is removing your pinky. And to make it a bit of a fuller 7, a bit of a more cheerful 7, we can add that pinky on the B string at the 6th fret. So that would be our G7, with or without the pinky. But a G7 we can also approach it in a bit of a jazzy way, which is this chord. And I love this chord. I love to use this chord. It gives, like when you do a flat tire, like. So I love using this chord, and the reason we're gonna use it is you use it a lot in the jazz. It's a real jazzy G7. It's also a G7 chord. So this is how it goes. We place our middle finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, our index finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the D string, and our pinky on the 4th fret of the G string. So we got, and those two strings below, we're just gonna mute them. So that's our G7 chord in kind of a jazzy way. So you can use this with any kind of placement. So here it is G, here it is an A, here it is a B, a C, a D, and an E, and anything in between, of course. But I'm pretty sure you already got that. So another way of playing a G chord, which will make it a bit more bluesy, is of course right down here. We got a G as well. We already learned how to play this G7 and this G7. We learned how to play a G9. Which is also very jazzy. But we can also use the Jimi Hendrix chord, as it's called. I think it's a 9 sharp 11. I'm not quite sure what to call it in musical terms, but it's known as the Jimi Hendrix chord. I don't know if he invented it or not, but that's what they told me when they taught me this chord. So it's actually exactly the same chord as we did at G7. Only you bring it down, every finger, one string. So every finger goes down one string. And then the root is your top string, your big string, your A string. So in this case this would be a G. A C, excuse me. A C Jimi Hendrix chord and a D Jimi Hendrix chord. Or a G Jimi Hendrix chord. So that's a great way of using a different type of chord while you're playing that G. You can use just any kind of G you like. Now you can also use a G6, which would be right here. It's actually very simple to explain this. When we use that G7 jazz chord, our ring finger, this one, is what makes it a 7. Now if you were to take that ring finger and place it one back, it will make it a 6. So this would be a 6. Now to be quite honest, I don't use this a lot. Could also come in handy in any which way you like. Now let's look at the minor perspective. So we have a G minor. Again, if we remove our pinky, it'll be a minor 7th. And if we add that pinky on the B string 7th fret, it will still be a G minor 7, but it adds a bit to it. We can also do this in a simpler way, the jazzier way, if you would call it that. I don't know if that's the right term, but in the simpler way it would be like this. So this would be another way of playing a G minor 7. So what we do here, we place our middle finger on the G, so it's on the third fret of the E string, of the big E string. And then our ring finger is going to bar every fret on the third, or every string on the third fret, except for the A. We're going to mute the A, we're not going to use that one. So the D, G, B and E, the high E, are going to be barred by that ring finger. And I prefer myself to mute the high E, just because I don't like that sound. If I want an extra sound, I'll place my pinky on that 5th fret. I much more prefer that. So sounds a bit funky even. Now another way of playing this chord to do it the real way is to place your index finger on the 1st fret of the A string, and because that makes it a minor, but you can leave that out because you're already playing the minor on the G string. So it's your choice whether you want to put it in or don't put it in, and as you can see it's almost exactly the same as the first chord without the pinky that we used. So those are some chord substitutions. Now another one I wanted to show you is let's take an example. You can always switch a normal chord for a diminished chord. So let's go to the C, because in case of a 12-bar blues, this is where I would most of the time use it. And when we're at the 4 chord, you play 4 times the 1 chord, so 4 times G, and then you get 2 times the 4 chord, which is the C chord in the case of a G 12-bar blues. But I like to change that 2nd bar, so the 6th bar of a 12-bar blues, I would like to change to a diminished chord. So here's an example of what I would do. So this is just a G. We're going to the C. So that's already substituting that C for another chord. So what we can do here, instead of playing that C, or we play it the 1st bar of the 2 bars of C, the 2nd bar we're going to play a C sharp diminished 7. I know that's a big name, but it's a real simple chord. I'll explain it to you. If you were to take C sharp, and so we would bar the 4th fret from the A string down, and then we would use our ring finger or pinky to bar the D, G and B string. On the 6th fret, we get a C sharp. You all know how to play a C sharp, I presume. And if we were to make that C sharp a 7, we could do this. So we remove that barred finger and put our ring finger on the 6th fret of the D string and our pinky on the 6th fret of the B string, and the rest is just that barred chord or that barred finger on the 4th fret. So that would be our C sharp 7. Now if we move every note back 1 fret to this side, except for our root, we get a C sharp diminished 7. So if we look at it like this, and we place everything 1 fret back, except for our root, which would be a C sharp, we get this, which is a C sharp diminished 7, which sounds great after playing that C, in this case a C9, but normal C could work, and then back to the G. Now let me explain to you fret by fret how to play a C sharp diminished 7. So we place our middle finger on the 4th fret of the A string, then our ring finger on the 5th fret of the D string, our index finger on the 3rd fret of the G string, and our pinky on the 5th fret of the B string, which would make it diminished, in this case a 7. And one thing that's quite nice to know about this chord is that you can move it by 3 frets. So if I play it right here on the 4th fret, I can also play it on the 7th, and I can also play it on the 10th, and and I can also play it on the 13th. And it sounds exactly the same. Well, it doesn't sound the same, but those are exactly the same notes, but in a different alignment. So you can actually move around with it. You can do anything you want with that. You can just move it along, front and back, however you like it. The notes will be the same, so you can actually have some fun with that. So, an example again, we're going from the G and we're going to go to the fourth, and a diminish, and back to the G, which I love doing. I do that a lot actually, and I like to move around with the chords. So you go. Now that sounded a bit out of tune. That was just me. That wasn't the chord. That was just me messing up here. But so I love that sound. So you can always use that. And just the theory behind it. There's not a lot of theory because I don't know it. But just you can, if your C is right here, just move up your root 1 fret and play the diminished there. It goes to the G as well. You play the G. You move up the diminish right there. Now diminish from the top string, just so you know, is quite easy. Diminish 7. So this is it. And what you get right here is, if this is a G and we're going to play a diminish in G sharp because it's 1 fret forward, you put your middle finger on the G sharp, so the 4th fret of the E string, the fat E string. Then you're going to place your index finger D fret 4th string D string 3rd fret, your ring finger on the 4th fret of the 4th fret of the G string, and then with your index finger you can actually borrow it a little bit, and you can place you can play that 3rd fret on the B string. Now I usually don't go this far. I only play the top 3 notes, but the full chord would be to add that 3rd fret on the B string. So there you go. So you can actually go in the key of G. Let's use that jazz 7 that we just learned. So there you go. You have a 12-bar blues in which you use the jazzy 7, you use the diminished. You can also add a minor to it. Just for an example of adding a minor in a major scale or in a major blues is you can actually, the turnaround of going from the 5 to the 4. You can actually change that up. Instead of going 5, 4, back to the 1, you can actually go 2, 5 and back to the 1. Which is also a pretty different way of playing the blues, but you actually rearranging your 12-bar blues progression. And let me explain it real short. If you're having trouble with it, don't worry, in the next video I'll go into more detail about that one. But let's say you're coming up to the turnaround, and normally you would go to the 5, to the 4, and then to the 1, 2, 4, 1, 5. Excuse that 2 in there, that wasn't in there. So instead of that, instead of going from the 5 to the 4, you're gonna go from the 2 to the 5 and to the 1. And then you can end it in any way you find you should end it. But an example how to find the 2, real easy. Just get your major scale again and just look which is the second note. So 1, 2. Ah, we found it. This is the second note, which is an A. And we can play that as a minor 7th, exactly that minor 7th that we learned. Sounds awesome with it. So you're coming from your G, and here's your turnaround. So you're going to the A minor 7th, to the D 7th, which is your 2, your 5, and then you're going back to your 1. So those are just some things you can use as a chord substitution. You can use it any way you like. If you feel like that diminish doesn't fit there but fits anywhere else, perfect, use it. If you feel like you would rather stick to normal chords instead of 7 chords and just use the 7 chords at the end of the progression, perfect, use it any way you like. Mess around with it, play around with it. There's just one more thing I want to add to this video. These are all very full chords. And there's actually a way, a great guitar player once taught me this trick, and it's real simple. It's the simplest way of playing a 12-bar blues with just 2 notes. You can actually play a full 12-bar blues with 2 notes. So to give an example of that, if we have our G7 and the jazz progression, right? And we use those lower 2 or those high 2, just these 2, so it's the 3rd fret on the D string and it's the 4th fret on the G string. We actually have all the essentials for a G chord, especially if there's a bass going behind you, you know? Then you need to go to your 4 chord, which will be a C, but all we have to do is those 2 fingers move on 1 fret back. And we got the essentials of a G7, a C7 chord. Back to G. Then for the D, we move on 1 ahead, so 1 towards your right hand. So we're index finger on the 4th fret and ring finger on the 5th fret. And then you have your D. 2 back is your C, and where we started off is our G. So we can actually play a 12-bar blues by just using 2 fingers. That's all there is to it. Now this might sound a bit weird without a bass player going in the back and a drummer and a singer making the whole thing work together. But it's actually really cool if you're playing in a band and you want to go real soft, but you don't want to lose your rhythm or lose your vibe that you got going on. You can actually just do this with 2 fingers. You go. That's just 2 fingers playing a 12-bar blues. I think that's it for this lesson, and I'll see you in another one. Thanks a lot for watching, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments below.